Okay, we're going to be working on lesson 9.1 and 9.2 out of our textbook. And so what we're going to be doing is we're now going to be finally still working on the quadratic, but we're going to be looking at the graphing of it. So we're going to be looking at pictures. Okay, so now you define the words on 1 to 7 here. I'm not going to go back through all those definitions. You should already have that. If you don't, then you need to go ahead and stop, write the definitions, and then listen to the video. All right, so on the quadratic formula, okay, the definition gives you y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, okay? One of the things that I need you to know is it doesn't really matter if I have a y, an f of x, which remember is just a fancy way of saying y, or a 0. When we're graphing, these are all kind of interchangeable. As long as we have one of these there, we're good to go, okay? And so today what we're going to look at is I'm going to give you an example of a picture of a parabola, okay, or a quadratic function. So I'm going to give you the picture, and what you're going to do is you are going to identify all of these parts in this picture, okay? And then the next lesson we'll actually take a look at an equation and how do we come up with a sketch on our own. All right, so the first thing that we see here is vertex. Okay, now if you go back and look at your definition up above, vertex is the highest or lowest point, maximum or minimum. Okay, so when I'm looking at this, it's either going to have a high point or it's going to have a low point. Okay, so in this case, we have a low point right here, and this is called the vertex. Oh, that didn't go so well. Okay. So where it's a high or low. And so since this is opening up, goes up, you're going to have a low point or a minimum point, okay? So the vertex, highest or lowest point. Now on this spot right here, we have what's called the axis of symmetry. And so if I think about what symmetry means, it just means it cuts it in half. So you can see here I've put in this red line, dotted line, okay? This is where it's going to cut your parabola in half, okay, called axis of symmetry. I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. And what I'm going to call it is just AOS, just for short. Okay, so axis of symmetry. All right, so now when I come over here and I take a look at what it's asking me to do here, my vertex, I need a coordinate point. So what is this coordinate point? Well, I'm going over -1, and I don't go up and down anywhere. So it's going to be -1, 0. Now, when I'm looking at this point, I want to know, is it a max or min? And we just talked about it's the lowest point, so it's a minimum. And then the axis of symmetry, reminder, it's that dotted line right in the middle. Where is it cut in half? Okay, well, in this case, it's cut in half at -1. So when I write this, it's an equation of a line, so it's x equals -1, all right? And just kind of keep in mind here, whatever your x value is here, you better have that same x value for your axis of symmetry. Those will always be the same, okay? All right, so now the next important thing on our parabolas is going to be the y-intercept. Now this is something we've worked on a lot this year, okay? So y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to kind of mark it right there, where it's on that y-axis. And this is your y-intercept. And again, we're going to need a coordinate point for this guy. Now, keep in mind that on the y-intercept, you have a rule we've used all year that x equals 0. Okay? So when you're writing your intercept, it's always going to be 0 and then something. So in this case, it's 0 up 1. So 0, 1 is your coordinate point. Okay? And the last part of the graph that we're going to be looking at is the solutions. Now, kind of a very important point here, and we need to write this down somewhere. Solutions can go by all of these terms. So I can ask you to tell me the solutions, the zeros, the x-intercept, or the roots. Okay? So let's make sure we write this down in our notes. So these 4 terms are interchangeable. I will expect you to know all 4 of them. All right? And what it's telling us is, where does the parabola cross the x-axis? So it's not the y-intercept. We just looked at y-intercept. This is the x-axis, so it's the x-intercept. Okay? All right, so if we come over and look at, for our solutions or our zeros, we're looking for, where does it cross this guy right here? That's what we're looking for. All right? In this case, it happens to cross right there. Okay, it's crossing at the same place my vertex is. That will not always be the case. This is just a special guy. So this is also going to be my solution. Now, you can write solution 2 ways. me zoom over here. Okay, so you can write a solution as two ways. You can just tell me that it's crossing at -1, or you can give me the coordinate point, -1, 0. I don't care, I'll put an or there in the middle. I don't care which way you do it, okay? It doesn't matter to me. All right, so just kind of recap real quick. Vertex will be your highest or lowest point, okay? It's either going to be the max or the min. It's always in coordinate point form, okay? Axis of symmetry, where it cuts the parabola in half, it will always be x equals, and then these two values should be the same. Y-intercept is just where it crosses the y-axis. It has the rule of this, so it'll always be 0 and whatever number it's crossing at. And then solutions, where does it cross my blue highlighted line or the x-axis? So in this case, it's touching at -1 or -1, 0. Now, to backtrack just for a second, double root just means that I'm going to basically cross the axis once. I have two solutions located here. It just happens that they're the same solution. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and head to the next page now. All right, so example 2, kind of zoom in on this guy. All right, so vertex. Okay, remember it's the highest or lowest point. So if I'm looking here, here's going to be my vertex. Okay, high or low. And so if I'm looking at that, that would be crossing at 2, 3. So I'm going to have the coordinate point 2, 3. It is a maximum point because it's the highest point, all right? It's the highest point, so that makes it a max. Okay, axis of symmetry, again, it's just x equals, and it's whatever your x value was here. So it's x equals 2. And remember, that's where we're going to be putting a dotted line starting Monday when we start graphing these, okay? All right, y-intercept, where does it cross the y-axis? So when I'm looking at this guy, it's crossing right there, and I need a coordinate point. We know that the rule is x equals 0, so we know it's going to be 0, and then what value? In this case, 0, -1. Okay? And then the last thing we're looking at is a solution. Where does it cross the x-axis? And again, remember, it can be called a root, a 0, the x-intercept, or a solution. So this guy has a lot of names, okay? So when I'm looking up here, in this case, I can't quite tell where it's crossing because they're crossing at fractions or decimals. So what we're going to do for right now until we get an exact solution is we're just going to say, let me zoom in here, we're going to say it's between and then let's see where we're between. We are between 0. So if I look here, we're between the 0 and the 1. And then 2, 3, between 3 and 4. Okay? So 0 and 1. And 3 and 4. So that's what we're between. Okay? All right, what I want you to do right now is I want you to pause the video and I want you to see if you can, how much you can do on 3 and 4 on your own. And then push play again, and we'll talk through 3 and 4. So go ahead and push pause and try these on your own. All right, so after you've hopefully tried these on your own, example 3, vertex. So in this case, it's my lowest point, so that would be a minimum. And the coordinate point would be over 1 and then up 3, so it would be a 1, 3 coordinate point. My axis of symmetry will be x equals whatever my x value is here. So x equals 1. Again, it's going to be that dotted line. Okay. My y-intercept is right here, this guy. And let's see, that would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 4. And now my solutions, when I'm looking for my solutions here, where's it crossing the x-axis? Well, in this case, it's never going to cross. So it's just going to... it's going to be a no solution. Okay? All right, and let's go ahead and take a look now at example 4. Okay, so in example 4, vertex, in this case it's a low point, so it's a minimum, and it's at 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, -4. Axis of symmetry is my x value, which is 0. My y-intercept happens to be in the same exact location, so it happens to be the same point for both, so 0, -4. And now my solutions, where's my parabola? Highlight that. Where's my parabola crossing my x-axis? Okay, in this case, it's crossing at -2 and 2. So again, I don't care if you put x equals -2 and x equals 2, or if you choose to say -2, 0 and 2, 0. Again, I don't care. Most of you will probably do this the more and more we work on it. Okay? All right, that concludes today's notes. Go ahead and complete whatever assignment you may have.